Hello there, and a very big welcome to OneWeb Launch 4. You're joining us live for the launch of the next batch of satellites in the OneWeb constellation to deliver high-speed broadband from space. Right now, they're on the pad at Russia's fairly new cosmodrome, Vostochny, that's in Siberia, and they're waiting for liftoff, which is scheduled in just under 26 minutes' time, and you can see the countdown there just on the top of your screen. Welcome to our watch party. If you're on our event platform, there's lots you can do. You can see the launch, you can explore our virtual environment, and you can interact with other people as well who are watching. My name's Katie Haswell, and I'm going to be your host for this return to flight for OneWeb. And what an exciting return it is. The satellites are on the pad. They're on board a Soyuz rocket, flight number ST-29. So it's the first commercial mission from the Vostochny Cosmodrome by Arianespace and its Starsem affiliate. And right now, the next 36 satellites are waiting patiently inside the nose of the rocket. That's the very top, inside the fairing, getting ready to start their journey. And once they join their brothers and sisters in space, they're going to bring OneWeb's constellation up to 110 satellites. So as we head towards liftoff, we're going to tell you what's involved in getting OneWeb satellites built and transferred to the pad, and we'll also explain how the constellation works. And I've got to say that just a little personal note here. For me, it's been a real privilege to be involved in the birth of a new constellation, particularly as OneWeb is just such incredibly pioneering technology. I mean, they are quite literally blazing a trail with their big ambitions to connect us all wherever we might be on Earth, and in the skies, of course. So joining me for our watch party is OneWeb's Senior Director of Space Infrastructure Development, Maurizio. Maurizio, thank you very much for being with us.
Hello, Katie. Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending on which time zone you're connecting from.
Yes, of course, because Vostochny is about 9 hours ahead of us, isn't it?
Correct.
And it's going to be dark there right now. So tell us about OneWeb. What's your mission?
Yes, absolutely. OneWeb mission is to deliver connectivity everywhere to everyone, providing global coverage by building a global communication network. It's about removing barriers and creating opportunities. Bridging the digital divide is about connecting the unconnected. You don't have to go to the Amazon rainforest or even the Lake District in Cambria. Wherever you are, we're going to be connect you.
And this is the fourth launch, isn't it, for OneWeb?
That's correct. It's the fourth launch. We had 3 successful launches so far. First launch was for our first 6 pilot satellites. They've been functioning extremely well, and that was followed by the launch of batch 1 and batch 2, 2 batches of 34 satellites each. Batch 3 today is the first batch with 36 satellites.
Yeah, which is great, isn't it? I followed all of those launches, each one of them exciting in its own right. And today, of course, we're launching 36. And so if you don't know too much about satellites, most big telecommunications satellites are in what we call geostationary orbit, a long way from Earth. They're 36,000 kilometers from our planet. But you guys are putting yours much closer to Earth, aren't you? Why is that?
We are flying 30 times closer to the surface of the Earth. So we're flying at 1,200 kilometers. And this has a clear advantage in terms of lower latency and faster internet connectivity.
So when you say latency, of course, Maurizio, means the time it takes for the signal to go up and down to the satellite and back. And that's very, very important, because the closer you are to Earth, the faster the signal can go up and down, the faster your connection is. And of course, as you know, we all want fast broadband these days. None of us want to have to wait. It has been a challenging year, though, hasn't it, Maurizio?
Absolutely. We cannot deny it has been an extremely challenging year for OneWeb and an extremely challenging year for the world. But there's no better way to close 2020, and we really look forward to start writing this new chapter of OneWeb's book.
Absolutely, indeed. It's been a tough year for you guys, of course, and it's been a tough year for everybody. One thing it has highlighted, though, is our need for better connectivity. There's been a growing need for services like OneWeb's for a long time. And the pandemic has really brought this home to us now more than ever, quite literally actually, for anybody obviously who's working from home or Zooming from home. Let's see how OneWeb have been preparing for today in the times of COVID.
It's really good to be back here on the factory floor, turning out satellites to complete our mission.
This is really like a resurrection from a very difficult situation.
Hardship always puts a challenge on how we relate as individuals to one another. And the whole difficulty and tragedy of COVID-19 has really pushed that to the limits.
The last 8 months have been a roller coaster ride. I mean, just to be totally honest.
Especially given this previous year, we've really seen how difficult it can be for people who don't have connectivity.
The mission to have an impact on global communication around the world is why I'm back.
We basically took advantage of that time when we were a little bit lower on output to make sure our processes were more efficient, more effective, to improve on the machine. We've had to evolve how we actually operate. We have masks, we have social distancing, we put plastic partitions at our break tables. We've also put in testing on site. So every 2 weeks, testing of everybody who works in the factory.
We've managed to keep our supply chain alive, so we started reactivating them come July. We estimate there's approximately 1,000 people around the world. So we have 30 major suppliers today. That means our teams actually have to cover 11 time zones, and they also have to speak 8 languages natively. And have put a lot of investment themselves into the project in terms of finances, in terms of teams, in terms of innovation.
And it's so exciting when we work together. There's no borders.
There's triumph in the air, there's pride in the air that we managed to be resilient and to get to the end of the tunnel.
The team has done an amazing job, and I'm so proud of all of them.
So while I'm based in the London office, the satellites that we're testing are actually in Florida. So we have to communicate with the Florida team, who then, once they've finished testing, they send off the satellites.
My job is to get all of our materials from point A to point B. So all in all, we have about 9,200 miles that we do in about 40 hours. When we land, the rest of the launch team will be waiting for us.
After working 30 days, 12 hours a day with a large team to get it all processed and onto the launch pad, seeing that launch vehicle go up into space is just amazing.
We've had hundreds, thousands of hurdles to get over to actually get those parts into our factory. The human connection there, the team spirit, yeah, we're going to have tears in our eyes.
I think that our leadership has relayed a great message to everybody as far as the health of the company.
We're actually building and launching up to 36 satellites multiple times per year.
We are the only company that can provide broadband global communication. By the end of 2022, we are planning to cover the entire planet.
That mission alone, keeps a lot of people motivated.
2020's been really tough, and I cannot think of a better way to end it. It's a new beginning in many ways.
A new beginning indeed, and with all that remarkable team spirit. I can't believe they had to speak 8 languages. You saw the satellites at one stage during that film going off in a big aeroplane, a specially designed aeroplane, especially to carry great big satellites. But what happened once they actually arrived in Vostochny? Well, every launch has something called a launch campaign when the satellites and the rocket are prepared for liftoff. And for anyone who's unfamiliar with a launch, we do have to build a new rocket every time. So today we are flying on board a Soyuz. The parts are manufactured in Russia and sent to the Cosmodrome where the rocket is assembled. And then in the meantime, once the satellites arrive, they have to be tested and connected to the rocket. Usually the teams are on site at the spaceport for several weeks to do that, and sometimes even several months. So I guess everybody gets to know each other pretty well, Maurizio.
Very well indeed. They've been spending 1 month together. And the team left the 15th of November, and took them about 48 hours to arrive to the Cosmodrome. They landed at an airport close to the Chinese border, and then they traveled, 300 kilometers, with the satellites, to the spaceport. Once the satellites have arrived at the spaceport, the usual checks before integration started. What does it really entail is visual inspection, health checks, charging the batteries, and then the satellites are integrated, on the dispenser.
And of course, that long journey you talked about is because Vostochny is in Siberia. So I'm guessing that the weather conditions are pretty extreme over there.
They are. Weather's been actually pretty benign so far. Temperature averaging between minus 30 centigrade and minus 20 centigrade degrees, but no heavy snowfall so far. What is interesting is that in the trip between the airport and the launch base is about 300 kilometers. That trip took about 6-7 hours. And the reason why is that the crew had to stop every hour, 90 minutes, to check that the generators that keep the satellites warm inside the transport containers are still working properly. And apparently there is a Siberian tiger reserve around, so they actually had to keep an eye on Siberian tigers as well.
Oh my goodness, that's remarkable. So they didn't have to stop for a herd. I don't think we say a herd of tigers, do we? But a pack of tigers crossing the road in front of them.
Luckily, no strange encounters.
But how remarkable to have the privilege of seeing Siberian tigers. This is the fourth launch of OneWeb satellites, as we've said, and of course the third this year. And Arianespace have been in charge of all of those launches. Previously, we launched from Europe's own spaceport. It's called the Guiana Space Center. It's in Amazonia in South America, right on the northeastern coast on the equator. So the weather's very different there, lots of mosquitoes. And the other one we've launched from is Russia's Cosmodrome Baikonur. That's in Kazakhstan, in the steppes of Kazakhstan. Today, we're on the pad at Vostochny, of course, and the Arianespace teams are there. And also in France, the CEO of Arianespace is Stéphane Israel, and Stéphane joins us live from their Paris headquarters. They are in Evry, where Stéphane is heading up today's flight desk. Hi, Stéphane. Are you with us? Great to have you with us. Thank you very much indeed, Stéphane. How are things looking in Paris and Vostochny?
So things are looking very well in Vostochny. You know that we are now a few minutes before the launch, and we are here in Paris with a part of the team. We have just behind me the team of Arianespace monitoring the last operations before the launch in close contact with all our colleagues in Vostochny.
And as you say, you've set up a special room there, haven't you, in Evry?
Yes, so it's definitely, yes, we have this special organization in Evry to make sure that we follow all what we have to follow. And what is quite remarkable is that we make the first launch from Vostochny, as you have underlined.
So can you tell us a little bit more, Stéphane, about today's mission? Because, of course, it's a very important day, isn't it? Because it marks the resumption of flight for OneWeb.
Yes, so it is the fourth launch for OneWeb today. We have already delivered one launch from the Guiana Space Center in 2019, then 2 launches from Baikonur at the beginning of this year, and we are now back with OneWeb from Vostochny. It is the first commercial launch from Vostochny, and this mission will embark 36 satellites due to the localization of Vostochny, which is 2 more satellites than what we can embark from Baikonur.
And so why did you choose the Vostochny Cosmodrome, Stéphane?
For the reason that it gives us an additional launch pad. We have already the possibility to launch Soyuz from 2 launch pads, which are the Guiana Space Center and Baikonur. And Vostochny is a brand new cosmodrome, a Russian cosmodrome, which is fully available for Soyuz. And the fact that we have now 3 launch pads to deploy OneWeb will allow us to speed up the deployment and the future launches.
So it gives you lots and lots of flexibility, doesn't it, as a launch service provider? And of course, any launch involves a huge amount of people and a huge amount of complex activities. Just tell us a little bit, Stéphane, about how you've been able to mount such a big event for today.
So for sure, we have all our Russian partners who are responsible for the Soyuz 3-stage, for the Fregat upper stage, our Russian partners who can belong either to industry or to the agency or dear Roscosmos. So this is a part of the team. After, for the campaign, you have the team of the customer or dear customer OneWeb. You have as well some of our industrial partners, such as RUAG, responsible for the dispenser, and for sure, the Arianespace and the StarSem team. So it means that now in Vostochny, you have a real international team, and I think space is also about international cooperation. So this is a very positive message.
Fantastic. Well, listen, thank you very much indeed, Stéphane, for joining us. Stéphane Israel, who is now heading off to continue monitoring events as we get closer to the liftoff time. And the Vostochny Cosmodrome opened, I think I'm right in saying about 4 years ago, so it's very bright and shiny and new, a thoroughly modern space facility. Let's take a closer look now. Nice to see the satellites being prepared there, Maurizio. We're going to head back to Evry now and to Vincent Baudel, who is the Advanced Studios Director at Arianespace. He's going to help us with any technical questions we have about the rocket. Hi, Vincent. Great to have you with us.
Hi, Kitty, and hello, everybody.
Hi. Well, what's happening? Well, first of all, let's talk about the rocket. As we've said many times, we're launching on board Soyuz. She's very reliable, isn't she?
Yes, the Soyuz launch vehicle, so the famous one, has been introduced in the 60s, and it represents a workhorse of the Russian Soviet space program. So it is a reliable and efficient solution for a full range of missions. It covers an unrivaled heritage. So imagine more than 1,925 launches to date. So, and it has performed almost every type of mission. So telecom satellites, constellation, of course, but also Earth observation, weather, scientific mission, and also manned spacecraft. So it is a very flexible launch vehicle, yes.
And how are things looking at the moment, Vincent, from your end in the countdown?
So 5 hours ago, the State Commission authorized the fueling of the Soyuz with propellant. So operation completed 1 hour ago approximately. And after that, the mobile gantry, which protects the launcher and the launch pad, was removed. And 10 minutes before liftoff, the Fregat upper stage sent the readiness of the upper composite to the Soyuz. So all key indicators are on green for ground and on board. And so far, final ops are running as expected, yes.
And we've got a long journey ahead. We've got lots of satellites to drop off at different locations. It's a complex mission for the Soyuz spacecraft, Soyuz rocket, and it's going to take just under 4 hours. Vincent, do you want to talk us through what's going to happen after liftoff?
Yes, so, well, the mission will start with the 4 booster phase, so for a duration of 2 minutes. After their separation, the second stage of the launch vehicle, so-called the central core, will take the reins during less than 3 minutes, and the fairing will be jettisoned. A few seconds before separation of the core stage, the third stage will be ignited, and the central core will be then separated. 9 minutes and 22 seconds after the liftoff, the third stage will be separated from the nose module, and after that, the Fregat upper stage mission will start with the first ignition of the main engine in order to reach the intermediate transfer orbit, so followed by a long ballistic phase. So a second ignition will be performed for circularization and injection onto the satellite separation orbit. And the satellite release sequence will start with first the separation of the 4 satellites integrated on the top conical part of the dispenser, and then successive separations of the 32 satellites integrated on the cylindrical part of the dispenser from the top row to the bottom row, 4 satellites at once. So as you can see on the 3D animation, it means that 9 separation events are necessary for the complete release of the 36 satellites, yes. So between each separation event, the sequence is identical. So 19 minutes, which consists in a series of maneuvers. So firstly, a tilting of the nose module, then a boost of the Fregat attitude control system with a very small delta V during few seconds, and then a new tilting of the nose module to the required orientation for spacecraft separation. So the separation itself is ordered by the Fregat upper stage. So it is a smooth separation ensured by relaxation of specific springs. And at the end of this complex release, so it occurs a little bit less than 5 hours after the liftoff, with the 9th and last satellite separation.
So that's the plan after liftoff, but right now we've got 36 satellites sitting inside our launcher in first class, Maurizio, but I don't think they're drinking champagne just yet, are they?
They are not yet drinking champagne, Katie. The satellites are kept nice and cozy inside, the top of the rocket, and the OneWeb launch team is monitoring through the umbilicals the status of the battery.
So it's always a tense moment, these last few minutes before launch. We're 3 minutes now, 9 seconds. Everybody's focusing hard in the control centers in various parts of the world. Vincent, just talk us through, very briefly now, some of the events that we're going to see just before launch.
So the beginning of the launch vehicle final automatic sequence has been initiated manually at 0 minus 5 minutes approximately, with a turn of key in start position, so an operation called in Kluch na start in Russian. So after that, purging operation are as well ongoing, and on Fregat, the transfer has been done to the onboard power supply. So now we are 2 minutes and 25 seconds before liftoff. So the umbilical connectors are separated. And in the meantime, perform pressurization of the Soyuz 3-stage tanks. After 45 seconds before liftoff, the Soyuz 3 stage, there will be the transfer to the onboard power. and after, there will be the beginning of the ignition sequence, so it is a progressive increasing of the thrust level. So the ignition will occur 16 seconds before liftoff, first with a preliminary thrust level at 11 seconds before liftoff, then an intermediate thrust level, so 4 seconds before liftoff, and finally, at liftoff time, the full thrust level.
So you can count to 16 once you see that first burn of the engine, because it takes 16 seconds for those engines to ramp up to full power. And just as we're getting to launch now, 1 minute and 14 seconds to launch, Maurizio. I wonder how you're feeling.
I think I am sharing the feelings of the entire OneWeb team. There's a lot of excitement and a bit of tension, just the right level to keep us on our toes. And a big thank you in this final moment to everyone that has been involved and is making this possible.
Absolutely, and we are now 49 seconds to the scheduled liftoff time. We're looking there, we can see the pictures of the launcher on the pad. It's dark, of course, so we're not seeing it very clearly, but let's close the mics down now and watch the launch.
Земля, борт. Есть переход блока И на бортовое питание 30-й. Есть отрыв. Есть мачта 30-й. Есть отрыв холодный пневмоколодок блока И 70-й. Промежуточная. Главное. Подъем. Двигатели центрального и боковых блоков вышли на режим главной ступени. 10 секунд. Параметры системы управления ракеты-носителя в норме. 20 секунд. Двигатели первой и второй ступеней работают нормально. 30 секунд. Параметры конструкции ракеты-носителя в норме. 40 секунд.
And they are off. The next batch of OneWeb satellites have started their journey on board Soyuz flight number ST-29, blazing a trail across the Siberian skies. We are looking there at the boosters, 4 of them burning, and they use a lot of firepower to get us away from the gravity of our planet. They're doing all the work right now. They burn for just under 2 minutes, and if we're lucky, we might even see them separating with the naked eye, because what we're looking at here is a nice, clean sky, clear sky, Maurizio. We're very lucky.
Very lucky tonight, and we're back.
Absolutely, Maurizio. We've lifted off. It's a long way to go, but you're back in action.
Back in action, absolutely. Our next 36 satellites, our batch 3 is on the way. And let's look what's going to happen over the next 4 hours. It's a bit of a long way to go, but looking forward to it.
And I think we are just seeing now the jettisoning of the boosters. Are we? We should see 4 dots.
130 секунд. Стабилизация изделия устойчивая.
Separating, we can see there it's going higher and higher into the sky, heading deeper and deeper into space.
Второй ступени работает нормально.
The next event is the separation of the fairing. Let's go back to you, Vincent. Have you got any news for us from your end?
Yes, so yes, we have the confirmation of the separation of the booster. Yes, so it is a good news. So we are getting the information from the team in the CVI. So the CV in French, so it means control visual media. So this operation team is tracking the launch vehicle and receive the telemetry data from it, so they can consequently confirm major events when they have occurred. Yes.
And it's incredible that we're still seeing these images here, even though we're now getting very close to the border with space. We're heading, or if not, we may have already got to the Kármán line. We call that the border with space. It's the point at which basically you have to use rocket science to stay up, because you can't use vehicles with wings anymore. And so we are getting close to separation of the fairing. Do you have any information yet on that, Vincent?
230 секунд. Параметры конструкции ракеты-носителя в норме. «240 секунд. Тангаж, рыскание, вращение в норме».
So we're still seeing those beautiful images there, quite remarkable. And we are scheduled to have lost our fairing, I think, by now, but we'll be waiting for Vincent to get those confirmations. And we're getting confirmation here that second stage is working nominally. We're burning the second stage right now because we've had the separations. So
confirm the separation of the second stage and of the fairing, so ignition of the third stage as well. Yes.
So OneWeb's going to give us fast internet from space. Let's take a little look now and see how the system is going to work.
Since the beginning, the World Wide Web has never been worldwide. But OneWeb's new and truly global 5G-ready network will fix that. Say you're working on the edge of the world and need to do a video call. Perhaps you're mid-ocean or mid-air. Wherever you are, you'll have a signal. OneWeb will connect your device through a customized terminal that can be as small as a briefcase and just as compact. Whatever your location, the terminal encrypts your data and sends it at high speed to our satellite fleet passing overhead. These spacecraft are radically innovative, built in our own factory at 1/50th the traditional time and cost, shrunk to the size of a washing machine, yet engineered to deliver powerful throughput. Month by month, we're growing our satellite fleet, and soon we'll have not only the global spectrum rights, but the network reach to deliver truly worldwide coverage. And here's the revolutionary part. The fleet will be in low Earth orbit, 30 times closer to Earth than geostationary satellites. This gives you a stable, real-time connection with no interruption or annoying lag. What's more, our fleet always keeps moving, orbiting in a constellation design that creates seamless coverage. Each satellite uses a set of beams to cover an area the size of Alaska. Terrain is no obstacle. From its flight path and pattern, our fleet can always find your signal, so we can get you online from even the trickiest locations, with look angles that geo-satellite broadband simply can't deliver. We maintain high-grade system resilience from 2 ops centers using state-of-the-art ops concepts. Cloud architecture gives us powerful scalability and control remotely. For example, we can remove satellites at the end of their service life, so that the only trace we'll leave in space is on your screen right now. Now back to that video call of yours. We beam your data back down to Earth, to our nearest satellite network portal. Then via one of our point of presence gateways, positioned in secure locations trusted by global providers, it re-enters the web. The journey you've just watched takes, at most, 1/10 of a second. And there they are. Your video call is good to start, whether with colleagues or your family back home. So you need never be out of signal or out of mind. OneWeb will connect you from unconnectable locations and keep you productive on the move. It'll be a breakthrough year when OneWeb technology creates real human progress, connecting everywhere, for everyone.
It's clever stuff, isn't it, Maurizio?
Very clever indeed, Katie.
Yeah.
And don't forget that, yes, it's exciting today, we're launching, but while we're launching, we have the factory in Florida with the OneWeb satellites. We're carrying on building and manufacturing our satellites, assembling them for the next batch. And don't also forget that we are deploying our ground network. So that is a fundamental piece, as you've seen from the video, of our capability to deliver global coverage.
So we're burning the third stage at the moment. Everything's going normally. Everything's going according to plan. So far, so good. Vincent, we're getting ready to switch the engine off, aren't we? Or Fregat's getting ready to switch it on?
Yes, Katie. We're getting to... Fregat is getting ready to switch on its main engine. So it is the first step called the pre-burn phase, so during 55 seconds. So it's giving a quick burst of acceleration, so to push the fluids back in the tank. So it is like when you accelerate in the car, when you get pinned back against the seat. So it is the first step of the Fregat mission. So this first ignition enables to inject the nose module to the intermediate transfer orbit. So it is an elliptical orbit, and the duration of this burn is just over 5 minutes. In the meantime, I can confirm that the third stage is separated, and it works. It has worked totally nominally, yes. And the first Fregat burn is as well confirmed.
So that's good. We've got confirmations there that everything's working normally. Everything's going according to plan. And just a quick description of what we're looking at here. You can see the third stage, the blue, obviously blue flame is the engine burning. Then the black disc and the silver disc are the third stage. Then we've got the gold structure, that's the Fregat upper stage. And then we've got the satellites attached. And this is the scheduled moment now to switch off the upper stage engine. And we should see that then separating. There we go. It looks like that in space. These are CGI images which have been designed to show us what's happening up there in space. So now the next thing, as Vincent was just telling us about, Maurizio, is the ignition of the Fregat upper stage. It's that gold structure there, and it's got all sorts of things on it. It's the brain of the whole vehicle. It's got the onboard computer. It can switch its engine on and off a number of different times while it's in space, and that of course makes it perfect for delivering all kinds of satellites to all kinds of orbits. And you could call it our celestial bus driver, and we're just waiting for it to switch its engine on right now. As Vincent was telling us, it's pushing the fluids back into the tanks. So it's just a little bit like if you put your foot on the accelerator of the car and you get pushed back against the seat of the car. That's what it looks like up there. Now, OneWeb are literally revolutionizing the way satellites are built. Let's take a look at how they do it.
The year was 1908, and the automobile was the prestige product of the age. Designed by brilliant engineers with names like Daimler and Benz, they were built one at a time by skilled craftsmen and sold in small numbers to the very wealthy. In that year of 1908, it all changed, because that was the year when the first Model T rolled off Henry Ford's assembly line. The car cost $23,000 of today's dollars, and the price fell every year until a decade later, Model Ts made up half of all cars in America. Ford conquered the market by making cars simpler and more standard, and by creating that famous assembly line to produce them in large numbers with consistent quality. Today, that same revolution is coming to a product that is literally out of this world. For decades, skilled engineers and technicians have been building satellites designed for unique missions and making them one at a time. They have delivered 1 or 2 dozen per year, each with a high price tag, and each designed to operate for decades in high orbit around Earth. But the business of space is changing as companies begin putting dozens or hundreds or thousands of satellites in orbit. Satellites whose cameras reveal Earth's secrets in astounding new detail. Satellites whose antennas bring high-capacity communication to the remotest corners of the globe. Space is nothing like the roads traveled by the Model T. It is airless, freezing cold and blazing hot, and flooded with radiation. Building for it is hard. But the assembly line has come to the manufacturing of satellites, and nothing will ever be the same again. In a new factory near Cape Canaveral, Florida, OneWeb Satellites operates the most automated assembly lines in the business. They run in a clean room the size of 24 basketball courts that keep them free of contaminants that could lead to failure in space. Components arrive at the building in a steady stream from a supply chain that stretches around the world. 2 weeks later, finished satellites emerge from the other side at a rate of up to 2 per day. In between is the assembly line, where engineers, technicians, tools, and robotics take part in a complex dance of creation. They build components into standard modules, and automated vehicles carry them to an assembly station, where teams assemble them into finished satellites. At each step, there are automated tests to check quality. Satellites that fail are sidelined for repair. And the testing isn't finished when the satellite is in one piece. It goes next into one of 32 special chambers for 2 days of testing to make sure it can survive the trauma of rocket launch and work reliably in the airless, blazing, and freezing conditions it will meet in space. Only when it has passed this battery of tests is it ready to be racked and stacked for its journey to the launch pad. Forecasters see an exciting future for space and satellite. Step by step, we are laying the foundations of a $1 trillion space economy, reaching from the Earth to the Moon and Mars. And with each step, life on Earth gets better. Fewer lives are lost to disaster, disease, and poverty. More food reaches the hungriest thanks to data from space. More people connect to broadband by satellite. And new industries begin putting the limitless resources of space to work for everyone. Rocket launches are thrilling, and rocket landings are a marvel. But it is on the humble assembly line that the future is taking shape every day. Space and satellite, the world's invisible, indispensable technologies. Brought to you by Space and Satellite Professionals International, with the support of OneWeb Satellites. Additional support provided by AVL Technologies.
It's so exciting, isn't it? It's a new era in space. It's a new chapter. And of course, OneWeb's leading the way.
Yes, absolutely. And the analogy with the car manufacturing is spot on. And we're really changing, the paradigm of manufacturing satellites.
Yeah, really, quite literally, and changing how satellites are built and how people think about the manufacturing of satellites. So the Fregat upper stage is working normally. We know that we're burning the end of the Fregat upper and coming towards the end of the burn of the Fregat upper stage. And we're coming to the next phase, which is when it's going to switch off its engine, which will take us into really the next phase of the flight, as it were. So we will await for confirmation of that. But just to explain, ballistics, a ballistic phase, as we call it, actually means traveling without the engine. And we can see there, that's what it looks like. It's switched the scheduled time for it to switch its engine off. So we're coasting without the engine. But Vincent, this is really, as I said, it's the next phase, isn't it, of the journey?
Yes, this is the next phase. So the Fregat engine works nominally, so it is a good confirmation. So we enter now a ballistic phase. So we're traveling high enough and fast enough cruise without the engine. So during this phase, we optimize the orientation of the launch vehicle in order to ensure the best condition for Fregat, but also for the 36 satellites. So this ballistic phase is done with, I would say, a barbecue mode during 45 minutes. So that is to say, a rotation of the nose module around its longitudinal axis. So it is a ballistic phase with a duration of 57 minutes. And after this ballistic phase, there will be a second ignition of the Fregat main engine to circularize the orbit and inject the nose module into the satellite separation orbit.
I love the technical terms in space, the barbecue phase, which actually does what it says on the tin, because the upper stage, as you could see there, sometimes when you look at it, you actually see it rotating. So it is rotating as if on a spit. Of course, it's incredibly hot when you're facing the sun and incredibly cold when you're away from the sun. So you need to have that constant rotation just to keep the temperatures nice and even. We lifted off on the pad at 12:26. Today, that's 12:26 in London, and it was a really sensational launch, wasn't it? It was beautiful. Now, let's hope that we can have another look at it and replay that beautiful launch that we saw.
Промежуточная. Главное. Подъем.
Look at that. How did that feel when you saw that lift off, Maurizio?
It was a big relief, very exciting, Katie.
It's always good to get off the pad, isn't it? And we were actually incredibly lucky because we had very clear skies here at the Vostochny Cosmodrome. So it's obviously been a crisp day today. I can't see any clouds. We didn't go and tuck in behind the clouds.
We've been extremely, extremely lucky to be able to enjoy the launch in its entirety.
And the cameras actually followed the launch for what seemed like forever. That's very rare to get the luxury of that. We did actually see the boosters separating with our own naked eye or through the camera, although it was quite difficult to decipher them. But this is the sort of the halo effect, isn't it, of the engines burning, the 4 engines. Really quite spectacular. Vincent, you've seen lots of launches over the years. How did this one compare?
Yes, so it is a fantastic event. You know, when you look at sort of launches from Peru and from Baikonur. So it is each time it is a new story which starts. Yes.
And of course, that was 20 or so minutes ago. But right now, our satellites are hurtling through space, riding bareback on board what remains of the launcher, the upper stage, attached to their special dispenser on board the frigate upper stage. It looks like they're going quite slowly, but actually, we haven't talked about speeds yet, have we, Maurizio? But they're probably travelling around about 8 kilometres per second now, but they will have got up to about 9 kilometres per second. It's incredible. Can you describe what we're looking at here?
Yes, absolutely. So we are looking at our 36 satellites stacked on a dispenser, and here we actually can see how the satellites will look like after they separated from the Fregat and the dispenser. We are looking at a trapezoidal pyramid with a truncated top. This is the way to optimize the accommodation inside the rocket fairing, so we can maximize the volume usage. After separation, the satellites will deploy their wings, and these when actually they start to fly. So they're launched, switched off. So once they separate and disconnect the umbilicals, they come alive. And the automatic sequence begins, and the solar panels deploy. The solar panels will start generating power to keep the satellite electronics alive and to recharge the batteries. And what we can see in the picture here are the most important parts of the satellite. So we can see the 2 dishes that are in charge for connecting the satellite with the gateway stations. And in front of us, you can see the deck of cards found out, which is the antenna responsible for the communication with the users, the user terminals.
And once the satellites are, well, right now Fregat is going through a precise set of maneuvers when it gets to the point of separating the satellites. That's going to happen in a little while, isn't it? But how does this actually work? How does the separation actually work?
The separation is a very, very gentle dance. So you mentioned, Katie, that we are traveling at kilometers per second, but everything now is going to happen extremely smoothly. So the relative speed, the relative velocity is going to be extremely, extremely slow. So the satellites are attached to the dispenser through mechanical bolts that will be disconnected through a bit of pyrotechnic device. So we have a bit of pyrotechnic device that's called a frangibolt, and once it's actioned, it's going to release the satellite, and the springs will gently push the satellites away. This is when the umbilicals will disconnect and when the satellites will come live. We've seen we're flying 36 satellites today, and they will be deployed through 5 different separation events. Also important to remember is that each time we go through a separation, the overall Fregat with the satellites that remain attached is going to become a bit lighter. And the Fregat is a very, very smart, intelligent school bus, but has only one gear, so only one thrust level. So what's going to happen is that in between each separation, the Fregat is going to fire its engines for a little less time.
I like the idea that it's very clever, but it's only got one gear. And once the satellites have been released, the teams at the control center on the ground will be taking on the job of checking them and actually flying their babies, operating them effectively. And we release them at 450 kilometers above Earth, but they actually have to travel to their final orbit on their own, don't they? They have to go a little bit of a distance. What's going to happen?
So we are in what is called the LEOP phase, the launch and early operation phase. The satellites will be released at 450 kilometers above our heads, and their final destination is 1,200 kilometers. So we have about 750 kilometers to cover. So at the end of the LEOP phase, the electric orbit raising phase is going to start. This is going to take us about 3 months, more or less. And you cannot drive straight in space. You have to spiral up. And this is what's going to happen, after the satellite has been fully checked and ready to be moved for into their final destination.
And so how are we going to know what's going on in space? Well, we actually track the rocket using a network of ground stations as she flies over, and we call this telemetry. But the satellite also sends a signal or they send signals to their ground stations once they're released, and we call this acquisition of signals. So, Maurizio, when are you expecting for your babies to call home?
We are targeting first acquisition within 2 hours after liftoff, and targeting to acquire all the 36 satellites within 5 hours after liftoff. And this is going to be done through a network, an array of antennas. We have 2 television and telecommand locations in Canada, at Inuvik and in Svalbard in Europe. And they are responsible for connecting the satellites with our satellite operations center.
So no doubt they'll be concentrating very hard when they get to that stage. Vincent, let's go back to you. Once the satellites are all delivered, it's not quite finished, is it, for the Ariane space teams?
Yes, absolutely, Katie. So after the last satellite separation, so the mission of the launcher, and particularly the Fregat mission, will continue for a little more than 1 hour. So first, a new coast phase of 1 hour duration, and then a third ignition of the Fregat main engine during 30 seconds for deorbiting and re-entry. So Fregat is then partly burnt up in the atmosphere during its re-entry with a drop zone located in the North Pacific. So it is it is a very long day for teams involved in Vostochny and Moscow, yes.
So thank you, yes, to those teams. They're going to have a long night all day ahead of them. But for now, our next 36 satellites are on their way to their destinations in space. We're going to close our program now, but Maurizio, a final thought from you.
It's a fantastic moment for us to be back. It's been a peculiar year for everyone, and this is the best way for closing the year. Absolutely. Looking forward to the next phases of the mission.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to say goodbye now, but do keep watching the live video. It's showing us what's happening up there in space, and you'll be able to see all the satellites separating from the mothership. And we will be bringing you live updates on the OneWeb platform as well. My huge thanks, of course, to everybody who's been joining me, to Maurizio. Thank you very much indeed, Maurizio, for being with us.
Thank you, everyone.
And good luck with the next phase of operations. And to Stéphane Israel and Vincent Baudel at Arianespace in Paris. Vincent, thank you very much indeed for being with us.
Thank you, Katie, and bye-bye, everybody, yes.
Our best wishes now to everyone who's been involved in the next phase, going to be involved in the next phase of the operations. And our thanks to you. It's been such a pleasure having you along with us for this journey. Do keep watching. I know we will be. And for now, goodbye.